For millions across the Philippines, the night began in complete darkness. Most families were asleep when the ground suddenly started shaking beneath them. Windows shattered, buildings swayed violently, power lines sparked overhead as terrified residents rushed into the streets. Then came the sound many feared most: the volcano. Only hours after the powerful earthquake struck, deep rumbling explosions began echoing from the mountain as ash clouds rose into the sky. Emergency sirens spread across nearby towns. Families grabbed children and fled their homes. And tonight, the Philippines is facing a terrifying double disaster unfolding in real time: a major earthquake and an active volcano showing signs of eruption. This is the growing crisis now unfolding across the Philippines. In the early hours of the morning, a powerful earthquake struck beneath the Philippines, shaking entire communities awake within seconds. Residents described hearing deep, cracking sounds before violent shaking spread through homes, apartments, hospitals, and office buildings. Furniture crashed onto floors. Glass exploded from windows. Streetlights swayed overhead as people ran into roads filled with panic and confusion. Videos shared online captured terrifying scenes: buildings shaking violently, ceilings collapsing, alarms echoing through crowded neighborhoods, and terrified families screaming as the earth continued moving beneath them. In some areas, the shaking lasted long enough for people to believe buildings were about to collapse completely. Hospitals rushed patients outside, businesses shut down immediately. Traffic came to a standstill as frightened residents abandoned vehicles and gathered in open areas. Then the power failed. Entire neighborhoods were plunged into darkness as electrical infrastructure was damaged during the quake. Emergency alerts spread rapidly across mobile phones, warning residents to prepare for aftershocks. And while authorities were still trying to assess the damage, another threat was already beginning to emerge in the distance: the volcano. Only hours after the earthquake struck, monitoring stations near one of the Philippines' most active volcanoes began detecting increased underground activity. Small tremors intensified beneath the mountain. Gas emissions reportedly increased. Then came the explosions. Residents living near the volcano described hearing deep, booming sounds echo across nearby villages as ash clouds began rising into the sky. Soon after, ash started falling onto rooftops, roads, and vehicles. Dark grey smoke drifted across nearby towns, while emergency vehicles moved through communities, warning residents to stay alert. For many families, fear spread almost instantly. The Philippines sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most volcanically active regions on Earth. Communities living near active volcanoes understand how quickly conditions can become catastrophic. And now, after already surviving a major earthquake, many residents feared the worst was still coming. Authorities quickly raised alert levels around the volcano. Evacuation preparations began near high-risk zones. Schools closed across several affected areas, while emergency shelters were opened for displaced families. Scientists continued monitoring the volcano closely for signs of a larger eruption. And across social media, panic began spreading rapidly. People feared the earthquake may have destabilized the volcano itself. As aftershocks continued throughout the day, evacuation efforts intensified across vulnerable communities. Families loaded belongings into cars, motorcycles, and trucks. Others fled on foot, carrying children, bags, food, and blankets through streets still shaking from aftershocks. Some residents described feeling trapped between two disasters. Behind them, damaged homes, cracked buildings, and unstable infrastructure from the earthquake. Ahead of them, the growing threat of a volcanic eruption. Inside evacuation shelters, hundreds of displaced residents waited anxiously for updates. Parents tried calming frightened children, while emergency workers distributed food, water, medical supplies, and blankets. Outside, long lines formed at gas stations and grocery stores as residents rushed to prepare for worsening conditions. Hospitals across affected areas remained overwhelmed, treating injuries caused by falling debris, collapsing walls, and panic during the earthquake. At the same time, disaster response agencies began preparing for the possibility of larger evacuations if volcanic activity intensified overnight. And for many people across the region, uncertainty quickly became the most terrifying part. No one knew exactly what would happen next. The Philippines is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. The nation sits directly along the Pacific Ring of Fire, where massive tectonic plates constantly shift beneath the surface. That means earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are an unavoidable reality for millions of people living across the country. Thousands of earthquakes strike the Philippines every year. Most are too weak to cause damage, but powerful seismic events like this one can trigger devastating consequences: collapsing buildings, landslides, tsunamis, and increased volcanic instability. Scientists are still investigating whether the earthquake directly affected the volcano, now showing increased activity. But experts warn that major earthquakes can sometimes alter underground pressure systems surrounding active volcanoes. When combined with existing volcanic instability, the risks become extremely dangerous. Environmental conditions may also worsen the threat. Heavy rainfall in several regions has already weakened hillsides and infrastructure. Combined with ongoing seismic activity, authorities fear secondary disasters such as landslides and flooding could still occur. And for emergency crews already responding to multiple crises at once, the situation is becoming increasingly difficult to control. Tonight, emergency response teams remain deployed across multiple regions of the Philippines. Police, firefighters, military personnel, medical crews, and disaster agencies continue responding to earthquake damage while simultaneously preparing for possible volcanic escalation. Search and rescue operations remain ongoing in areas where buildings suffered structural collapse during the quake. Rescue dogs and thermal imaging equipment are being used to search damaged structures for trapped survivors. Meanwhile, volcanologists continue monitoring the mountain 24 hours a day. Every tremor, every gas emission, every explosion. Authorities warn that any sudden increase in activity could force immediate mass evacuations near the volcano. Government officials are urging residents to remain calm but prepared. Emergency shelters remain open. Additional aid supplies are being transported into vulnerable areas. And disaster agencies continue warning residents to avoid restricted zones surrounding the volcano under all circumstances. But across social media, fear continues spreading rapidly as dramatic footage circulates worldwide. Videos showing violent earthquake shaking, ash clouds rising into the sky, terrified families evacuating, and emergency sirens echoing through crowded streets. Families who survived the earthquake are now preparing for the possibility of a volcanic eruption. Emergency crews continue working around the clock. Scientists continue monitoring the mountain, and thousands of residents remain displaced as uncertainty spreads across the region. What began as a sudden earthquake has now evolved into a growing national emergency filled with fear, tension, and unanswered questions. For millions across the Philippines, the danger may not be over. And as aftershocks continue beneath the surface, authorities warn conditions could still change rapidly at any moment. This disaster is another reminder of the immense natural forces constantly shaping life along the Pacific Ring of Fire. A region where the Earth itself can suddenly become unpredictable and deadly. For now, communities across the Philippines wait anxiously through the night, watching the volcano, listening for aftershocks, and hoping the worst has already passed.